So I want to talk a little bit about how I actually got into the field of school psychology. And I joke and I say that it was an accident, but I actually believe that it was divine how I ended up getting into the field of school psychology. And so I went to Hampton University for undergrad. Then after that, I knew I wanted to go to graduate school. And the reality is, I didn't have the grades to go straight from an undergrad program straight into a doctorate program. My GRE scores were probably the lowest that you could get. It was terrible. I didn't do well at all. I didn't do well academically my freshman and sophomore year. I did well enough to pass and get by, but starting off poor my freshman and sophomore year in undergrad, I really had to do a lot of work my junior and senior year. And so my GPA wasn't the strongest. I think I ended up with like a 2.87 or 2.9. And that was with me getting, high B's, A's, junior and senior year. So my GPA wasn't strong. My GRE scores wasn't that strong. What really helped me is that I was super involved in a lot of different activities and clubs and leadership things while at undergrad. And then I had some help writing a strong personal essay. And so I actually was accepted to go to a clinical psychology program out on the West Coast in California. And so I was supposed to go to school way out in California. And literally about a week or so before I was supposed to go out there, I had a change of heart. And it was just something in my mind to where it was like, that's not a good fit for you. And so it was a absolute last minute change. I just happened to apply. Shout out to my dad, who's a minister, and he had a connection at this school called Abilene Christian University out in West Texas. And because of that connection, I was able to apply. Like I said, it was last minute, and I was able to get admitted into that program. And so a few short weeks later, I packed my bags. I have an identical twin, super random, I know. We hopped in my car and we were in Maryland at the time, and drove from the DMV all the way out to Abilene, Texas. And whew, that was something else. And once I got there, started my program, I started out on the clinical psychology track. As a clinical psychologist, I loved it. I always wanted to go into private practice. I thought I wanted to work with families, with late adolescence, early adulthood. I really wanted to work with Black families and Black people. Also working around unresolved mental health issues. And I had this assignment. And with that assignment, I really had to look at, what are the demographics, what's the pay, what's the job prospects for all the different fields within psychology. And so that included clinical psychology, it included developmental psychology, educational psychology, IO, which is industrial organizational psychology. And, I actually was a little bit distraught because I come all the way out to West Texas. I decide I want to, be in this clinical psychology track and work with this demographic. And I found out several different things, mainly that the demographic I wanted to work with at that time rarely sought out therapy and counseling. And then I looked at the numbers, the job prospects, the salary, employment opportunities, and therapists at that time, it seemed that they weren't making, that much money. And so I really had to think deeply about the route that I was headed on. And then I met, and this is where I say it was divine. I actually ended up meeting the director of the school psychology program at that time. And I remember one of the things that she said to me is, it's easy to, work with youth when they're younger, but as they progress into late adolescence, adulthood, it becomes much harder. And so the Frederick Douglass quote, came to mind: it's easier to build stronger children than to repair broken men. And she really introduced this idea, this preventative model. And then she took it further and said, there's schools all across this country and every kid has to go to school. Have you thought about school psychology? And I was like, what? I don't want to be a school counselor. She's like, no, I'm not talking about school counseling, not talking about becoming a counselor. I'm talking about the field of school psychology. She really broke it down to me what it was, explained that I could work with youth, elementary, middle, high school age students, and help them with their mental health with positive emotional development so that by the time they become adults, they don't have to deal with those issues and they have the skills to navigate the world around them. And it just made sense. And so I actually ended up switching from the clinical psychology track to the school psychology track. Once I made that switch, I fell in love, completed my internship. After my internship, became a practitioner for over a decade. I practiced for a long time, all levels, elementary, middle school, high school, all within the public school. I also worked at alternative school, which I love the opportunity as well. And that's how I got into the field of school psychology. It's multifaceted, it's complex, there's pros, there are cons, just like any profession. But that was my journey into the field of school psychology.